even from this, what we've spoken about now, and I think everyone from the outside knows from how you approach skating that you look at things very outside of the box. And even just talking to you now about you see a problem or a need for something that's lacking in blading, and you want to fill that void or create something. Is that something like a way you've approached, like your way of thinking your whole life, or is this something that now, since you've been a shop owner, you're like trying to figure out how to fill that void or how to, because it's a very it seems like your approach is very unique, not only in skating but in how you make products or whatever the case.
Yeah, I never thought about it outside of skating, but maybe it comes from, let's say I know I'm not as good of a skater as yourself, for example, so I'm not going to try to compete on that level. Or I guess I see skating as maybe you inspire people to kind of push them in a certain direction. So, yeah, so when I don't see a success path in one way, I would say, okay, maybe I can try something, almost creating a different category
totally.
to go there. It's almost like, there's people that doing certain things so well, then let them keep doing it and then move on and try to find your own little thing that you can do well.
Right.
And then just by putting the time and effort into it, slowly it will
become its own thing and grow legs and start walking, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess, I do look at a lot of things in life this way, where the most kind of obvious path seems to be the most difficult. So maybe it's some laziness in a way that I'm like, I don't know, this would be too tough, so let's try to make it this way.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like you, if I'm not mistaken, you invented the wizard frame, right? You created that?
Yeah.
And what was the inspiration for that? Because I know I've at least, it seems like you've created like a new thing for skating. And Mike Torres is taken to it. I see him out there, and I see a few other people, and it's really cool, and it's like completely a completely new landscape that it opens the doors to. And so where did that come from, that idea?
So it kind of evolved over time, but I think it's still evolving, so we're constantly trying to figure out what it is or what can you do with it. But it started, so like I said, at first we were just an aggressive shop, and then we opened, so as an aggressive shop we just had an online store, and then we opened our first retail store in Vancouver. And a lot of people were asking for regular recreational skates. And in my mind, you can go to a big sports store, like in Canada, it's called Sport Check. You guys have Big Five. So I thought, if you want recreational skates, you can just go there. Why would I even bother competing with those stores? But a lot of skaters would come and ask for wheels and bearings and
rec bladers, you mean?
Rec bladers, exactly, outside of kind of my community. So that kind of made sense to just have a couple options for them, because just from communicating with them, I realized they're into skating just the way I am, just in a slightly different field. They're older and they can't do jumps and stuff like that. So it just made sense to service this community if I have a store. So the first year, I think we ordered something like really small, like maybe $10,000 of rec skates for the first summer. And I think that summer we sold out and reordered maybe about 50 grand.
Oh, damn.
Wow.
Which is like, to make profit from this, it sounds great, but you buy it, you sell it.
Of course. Yeah, it just helps you keep the lights on and stuff and everything. Yep.
But just kind of realizing $10,000 seemed like a huge risk at the moment, at the time. And then going through $50,000 in one season. Yeah. Just like instantly.
It's like, oh, there's a market here.
Exactly. Yeah. Like people actually want it, which I didn't realize before opening the store. And I guess the big stores also, they were noticing a decrease over the years. So they were slowing down. Wow. Like exactly the perfect time we were kind of, we can take on all this extra business.
So their inventory was getting lower. They were carrying less and less. And
exactly.
You started filling that void.
And so right away, like the next season, we opened a store in Toronto. And then we kind of went wild. We opened a store in Montreal. Calgary and Seattle. So like at one point we had,
I didn't even know that.
yeah, so the Montreal store closed. It was too much for us to handle. But we kind of like slimmed down a little bit and opened better shops and figured out the business model a little better and what kind of locations we're looking for. And like our spaces always have like a 16 feet ceiling to have skates stocked up to as high as possible. So we figured out what works in terms of paying for square footage and how much we can afford. So
probably learned a lot in that whole process.
oh yeah, still every day it's just like, yeah, always learning. But
And so how did like the rec thing transition into like the Wizard?
So after selling those kind of cheaper skates, I realized that there's a market for slightly better recreational skates. Because the way I thought of recreational and the way companies think of recreational is the cheaper option, basically. And I kind of looked at it as that's actually most of the people that come into the store are recreational. So I started buying Seba skates because they were one of the only options with a more expensive product. And I didn't even know what I'm getting into, just wanted to see, like having higher price point products in the store and seeing how they sell. And at first we were selling, Rollerblade has more of a speed skate categories with bigger wheels, lower cuffs. So I started bringing more of those skates and selling them, but then slowly seeing kind of the customers coming back and giving me feedback saying those wheels are too big, the cuff is not supportive enough, and can't like really use them the same way I use my Lightning TRS or whatever. So that then with Seba having a hard boot and bigger wheels made a lot of sense, because then you don't need to be a speed skater, you can just be a recreational skater and you'll have the right support and you'll be able to control the skates pretty well. And the price point is higher, so the store can actually survive or make a profit. And so, yeah, through Seba, I started kind of, I guess, taking notes of like what size wheels people are buying, and I guess constantly searching for that happy medium. Like what wheel size do I recommend for the 80% of the people that walk into my store? And it was always between 80 and 84 millimeter wheels. I felt when I gave people, let's say 90 millimeter wheels, they couldn't control it well in the store. And then for a bigger guy, if I give him 80 millimeter wheels, if the wheels are shorter than the kind of his foot length, then I felt like that would be a little unsafe outdoors. So I would recommend 80 millimeter wheels to smaller sizes. Let's say, like a lot of the ladies would be on 80s and then the guys would be on 84. But then myself, I was using 90s, and just from experimenting with different sizes, and that felt like a perfect medium. You know, I can go fast, gives me good shock absorption, but as a good skater, I can still control them really well. Like I didn't have issue of turning. And also, a decent skater within a couple of days would wear out their wheels to a point where they can turn really well, compared to a complete beginner walking into a store, putting on 90s without the right boot, and they just can't move. So I realized that what the customer is looking for and how they're experiencing skating in kind of practical setting is different than the options that are available in a way. So my thought was, the reason why I like the 90s is because it gives you this nice stable base. So I thought that 90 would be that perfect happy medium that can cover all sizes. But if we can have those 90s slightly rockered to make it a little easier for the kind of breaking in period. And at the same time, we were always rotating wheels on skates. That's part of the service that we provide. And just rotating wheels on skates, I would always notice that it's the exact same pattern where your outer wheels wear out first, your inner wheels wear out less, and then because you're mostly skating forward, the front of the skate wears out more than the back.
Yeah.
So just kind of made sense. And your skates, once you start wearing out the wheels, they feel perfect. You can turn, you can do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice to put brand new wheels and have them like in that perfect setup, with the thought like not to do any tricks with it, just literally just to give it to, just to have the most simple experience of skating. So that was kind of the idea for the Wizards, which wasn't supposed to be a big departure from the normal frames.
Mm-hmm. Normal rec, or
just any comparable 90 millimeter wheel.
Right.
So when I kind of pitched the idea to a few people, I remember kind of mentioning it to like Seba, mentioning it to Peter from Adapt, kind of saying, I think you guys should make something like this. And it kind of made sense, but how much of a difference would it really make, like that slight rocker, and would the consumer really be interested in it? So after realizing that no one is going to make it, luckily I had kind of the perfect connection fall in my way. This guy Dan, he was sharing a warehouse with Naomi, who was the US Seba distributor, and he makes parts for cars, and like his whole family has been in the machining business for a long time, and he's a really good quad skater, and he made his own trucks for quad skates, and he makes his own wheels. So a really smart guy, part of the community, and I would see him every time I would go to the States and like do kind of work with Naomi in the warehouse. So I kind of saw his workshop slowly growing, and one day I just asked him kind of what would it take to make a frame that would be this way and this way. And it was pretty funny because I think I owed Naomi money at the time, and he said it's going to cost $3,000 to make like the first prototype, so we'll go through a few prototypes, figure out the rockering that you want, this and this. It's going to take him like a week or two to like program everything. And I asked Naomi, I'm like, hey, is it cool? Like, I know I owe you money, but is it cool if I put this money towards this? And Naomi is really passionate about skating. She was a kind of world famous slalom skater. So she was like, yeah, that's fair. Just, I think that would work. So she kind of gave me the okay, and then was great to work with, and we made a few prototypes and figured out the rocker. So that's kind of how it started, and that was 2014 that we made.
Damn, was that long ago?
The first Wizards. Yeah, it's weird.
Jeez.
I only know because we have the kind of the marking of the date on the frame. So after a couple of years, I'd be like 2014.
Yeah, time flies.
Yeah,
it's cool that you were lucky enough to have a skate shop where you got pretty much direct feedback from all these customers about how their skates worn down, and you just use that, and just gears started moving in your head. Like, I could just fix all this myself,
Yeah, like it was too obvious.
So you made it. Did you make the frames for those kind of like for like the customer base, not just for yourself, with the idea to have like a new style of skating?
Yeah, exactly. So at first it was completely not selfish. It was just like, hey, let's see how can we bring skating back to life? Like, and I think the equipment was really important, the comfort of the liners, and the just in general, like how easy it would be for the user to adapt to this equipment. And so so it wasn't designed for us, kind of thing.
Right.